wanted to paint this painting because as far as I knew in the South, whenever you saw one of them long jockeys, it was considered racist. And I was going to paint my Jocko flipping off the world like, ew. But before I study or paint any subject matter, I like to study. I want to know what I'm painting. So as I started to look into the story of the lawn jockey, I learned that George Washington created the statue. Now, it was a 12-year-old boy. His name was Jocko Graves, mind you. And they called him a lawn jockey. But his name was Jocko Graves. Jocko Graves forged forward when George Washington was trying to sneak up on the redcoats and go across to Delaware. So Jocko Graves, who could not fight with George Washington, said, I'm going to play my part. I'm going to go ahead and actually get them some horses in the campground. His father, who was a free slave, actually fought with George Washington. He was with his troops coming up the river. So everyone's familiar with that painting of George Washington. I like to believe the black man that was in the boat with him was actually Jocko Graves' dad. I don't know, but I like to believe that was Jocko Graves' dad. Okay. So anyway, George Washington gets there, he gets to the campground, he sees the horses, he's like, cool. He grabs the lanyard, he's trying to pull it, and he won't move. And he realized it's Jocko Graves. The little boy froze to death, waiting for them to return. So you talk about commitment. A young man who couldn't fight, but he still wanted to fight for his freedom. Mind you, I'm sure his parents and family members and all those were still slaves, but we're going to fight. And so he wanted to fight. Got over there, froze to death. George Washington was like this young man's commitment and valor. He created a statue in commemoration of him that sat on the back lawn of George Washington's home in Mount Vernon. And a lot of times they would light the actual lantern when horses was or boats was coming in because it was right on the river. Years later, replicas were made. And these replicas were actually for horse harnesses to tie the horses up to. So you'll see some with rings and you'll see others with the actual lanterns. I found out that it was also used under the Underground Railroad. A lot of times there was a lot of secret messages that the abolitionists used with Harriet Tubman and all these other slave leaders that was, or actually freedom fighters that was actually getting slaves up north. They'll come to a house. It'll be a lawn jockey there. In the evening, they will light the lantern. During the day, the lantern may be off, so if it wasn't a cloth written around it, that means this house was safe to come to. If it wasn't a safe house, at the evening, the lantern was off. During the day, they'll wrap a ribbon of some color around his arm to say, don't go to this house, go to the next house. So can you imagine, here this Jocko sitting here, the lantern's lit, these people, they only know the actual secret. You know, you have patrollers actually looking for slaves running. They wouldn't have known the thing was lit up. They thought it was just lit up for the person to see where to come. Of course, the persons that was trying to get away from this mofo, we need to know how to light to get us up north. Okay? You see, he's actually in a jockey type of uniform. The older versions of him, he's in a slave uniform. The newer versions of him have him in a jockey uniform because in the Midwest you had the Kentucky Derby. The Kentucky Derby was ran by slaves. Most of the riders, all the riders in the first Kentucky Derby were slaves. So I wanted to actually celebrate them as well as Jocko Graves. So instead of putting him in the slave uniform, I put him in the jockey uniform, which I'm sure you will see a lot of those. People go around, they see them when they travel, folks has kicked them, they painted them white, but initially they all were just cast black, big old eyes, and they actually embellished some of them later on. But George Washington again created the first one to commemorate his valor. So when folks see that, it's something to be excited about and celebrate, rather than see it as something negative and kicking it. It's history that's lost. So part of oration is about rebirthing that history so we can have something to celebrate. So as you look at Jocko, he's wearing this white and red uniform. This white, again, that's talking about freedom and encouragement, the red for the blood. The lantern is lit to say that we can move forward as black folks. The foundation has been broken by the forefathers that have moved up to find our freedom. But we can no longer live in the shadow to see that something is negative. And he's boxed in his green because it's a lawn jockey. It's a lawn ornament. That's why he has his green background. But the box is a box mentality. They actually see this as something bad that was lost. The box that you actually see what you can enter out of is the freedom to be able to receive knowledge and education so we can be able to celebrate the things that so many of us have seen negative over the years, that is really something that we can celebrate.
Absolutely.
That is Jocko.
Jocko!
All righty.